The night was calm in the desert of New Mexico. The sky stretched endlessly above the Deep Space Observatory, a place where scientists spent their days and nights searching for answers to questions no one had asked yet. Inside the control room, Dr. Laura Bennett sat at her desk, staring intently at a screen filled with lines of data. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she adjusted settings and ran calculations. Beside her, Ryan Carter, her assistant, leaned over another monitor, his eyes scanning through patterns that looked like random noise to most people but held meaning for those trained to see it. Laura sighed and leaned back in her chair. "Ryan, do you think we're wasting our time here? All these signals, it's always just static." Ryan glanced at her, a small smile forming on his face. "Well, if it were easy, someone else would have found something by now. We're the ones who get to be the first, right?" Laura chuckled softly. "I guess so." She turned her attention back to the screen, her curiosity reignited. Just then, a faint blip caught her eye. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a tiny spike in the data stream, but it was different from anything they had seen before. "Ryan," she said sharply, pointing to the screen. "Look at this." He hurried over, his expression shifting from casual interest to intense focus. "That's unusual. Let me run a spectral analysis." Minutes passed as the two worked silently, their movements synchronized after years of working together. The results came in, both froze. The signal wasn't natural. It followed a repeating pattern, a sequence of pulses that seemed deliberate. "It's artificial," Laura whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "This isn't random. Something is sending this." Ryan nodded, his mind racing. "Should we tell Dr. Miller? Or maybe alert NASA directly?" Laura hesitated. This kind of discovery could change everything. If they were wrong, they'd look foolish. But if they were right? "Let's double-check everything first," she said finally. "We don't want to jump to conclusions." For the next several hours, they pored over the data, running every test they could think of. Each result confirmed what they already suspected. The signal was real, and it carried a message. Using advanced algorithms, they began decoding it. Piece by piece, the pattern revealed itself. Not words, exactly, but symbols arranged in a way that suggested intelligence. When morning broke, Laura called an emergency meeting with the observatory director, Dr. Helen Miller. By the time the team gathered in the conference room, excitement buzzed in the air. Laura explained their findings, showing graphs and charts to support her claims. At first, skepticism reigned. Some thought it might be interference from Earth-based sources. Others wondered if it was a prank. But when Ryan played the decoded audio A series of rhythmic clicks and tones, the room fell silent. No one could deny that it sounded intentional. Dr. Miller immediately contacted NASA headquarters, knowing this was bigger than any single research facility. Word spread quickly. Within hours, top officials convened in Washington, D.C. to discuss the implications. President William Hayes listened intently as experts described the signal. His advisors debated whether responding was wise. What if the sender wasn't friendly? What if this was a trap? General Andrew Hughes, head of space defense, voiced his concerns. "We can't assume good intentions. For all we know, this could be a lure to draw us out." Samantha Klein, an intelligence officer known for her sharp instincts, countered him. "What if it's genuine? If we ignore it, we might miss the chance to make contact with intelligent life. That's worth the risk." President Hayes weighed the arguments carefully. He understood the dangers, but also recognized the potential benefits. After a long pause, he made his decision. "We'll respond," he said firmly. "But we'll prepare for every possibility. General Hughes, I want our defenses ready. Ms. Klein, coordinate with NASA to draft a reply." Back at the observatory, Laura and Ryan felt a mix of pride and unease. Their discovery had thrust them into the spotlight, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to happen. As the response signal was transmitted into the void, neither could have guessed how profoundly it would alter the course of human history. Days turned into weeks. The world watched and waited, holding its collective breath. News outlets covered the story nonstop, speculating about who or what had sent the signal. Conspiracy theories flourished online, while governments scrambled to prepare for any outcome. Then, one evening, the answer came. A fleet of ships appeared near Jupiter, their presence detected by telescopes and satellites. They were unlike anything humanity had ever imagined, massive, sleek, and glowing faintly against the blackness of space. Communication attempts yielded immediate results. The aliens identified themselves as the Krylosians, claiming their homeworld was under attack by an unstoppable enemy. They begged for help, offering advanced technology in return. President Hayes ordered Captain Daniel Reeves, a seasoned astronaut, to lead a diplomatic mission aboard the SS Vanguard. Laura and Ryan were chosen to join the crew, tasked with assessing the situation up close. As they prepared for departure, a mixture of hope and fear gripped everyone involved. Humanity stood on the brink of its first encounter with extraterrestrial life, and whatever happened next would shape the future forever. Unbeknownst to them, however, the Krylosians harbored secrets of their own. Their plea for aid was not entirely truthful, and their arrival marked the beginning of a chain of events that would test Earth's resilience in ways no one could have anticipated. The night was calm in the desert of New Mexico. The sky stretched endlessly above the Deep Space Observatory, a place where scientists spent their days and nights searching for answers to questions no one had asked yet. Inside the control room, Dr. Laura Bennett sat at her desk, staring intently at a screen filled with lines of data. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she adjusted settings and ran calculations. Beside her, Ryan Carter, her assistant, leaned over another monitor, his eyes scanning through patterns that looked like random
white noise
to most people, but held meaning for those trained to see it. Laura sighed and leaned back in her chair. Ryan, do you think we're wasting our time here? All these signals, it's always just static. Ryan glanced at her, a small smile forming on his face. Well, if it were easy, someone else would have found something by now. We're the ones who get to be the first, right? Laura chuckled softly. I guess so. She turned her attention back to the screen, her curiosity reignited. Just then, a faint blip caught her eye. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a tiny spike in the data stream, but it was different from anything they had seen before. Ryan, she said sharply, pointing to the screen. Look at this. He hurried over, his expression shifting from casual interest to intense focus. That's unusual. Let me run a spectral analysis. Minutes passed as the two worked silently, their movements synchronized after years of working together. The results came in, both froze. The signal wasn't natural. It followed a repeating pattern, a sequence of pulses that seemed deliberate. It's artificial, Laura whispered, her voice trembling slightly. This isn't random. Someone or something is sending this. Ryan nodded, his mind racing. Should we tell Dr. Miller? Or maybe alert NASA directly? Laura hesitated. This kind of discovery could change everything. If they were wrong, they'd look foolish. But if they were right, let's double-check everything first, she said finally. We don't want to jump to conclusions. For the next several hours, they pored over the data, running every test they could think of. Each result confirmed what they already suspected. The signal was real, and it carried a message. Using advanced algorithms, they began decoding it. Piece by piece, the pattern revealed itself, not words, exactly, but symbols arranged in a way that suggested intelligence. When morning broke, Laura called an emergency meeting with the observatory director, Dr. Helen Miller. By the time the team gathered in the conference room, excitement buzzed in the air. Laura explained their findings, showing graphs and charts to support her claims. At first, skepticism reigned. Some thought it might be interference from Earth-based sources. Others wondered if it was a prank. But when Ryan played the decoded audio A series of rhythmic clicks and tones, the room fell silent. No one could deny that it sounded intentional. Dr. Miller immediately contacted NASA headquarters, knowing this was bigger than any single research facility. Word spread quickly. Within hours, top officials convened in Washington, D.C. to discuss the implications. President William Hayes listened intently as experts described the signal. His advisors debated whether responding was wise. What if the sender wasn't friendly? What if this was a trap? General Andrew Hughes, head of space defense, voiced his concerns. We can't assume good intentions. For all we know, this could be a lure to draw us out. Samantha Klein, an intelligence officer, known for her sharp instincts, countered him. What if it's genuine? If we ignore it, we might miss the chance to make contact with intelligent life. That's worth the risk. President Hayes weighed the arguments carefully. He understood the dangers, but also recognized the potential benefits. After a long pause, he made his decision. We'll respond, he said firmly. But we'll prepare. For every possibility, General Hughes. I want our defenses ready. Ms. Klein, coordinate with NASA to draft a reply. Back at the observatory, Laura and Ryan felt a mix of pride and unease. Their discovery had thrust them into the spotlight, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to happen. As the response signal was transmitted into the void, neither could have guessed how profoundly it would alter the course of human history. Days turned into weeks. The world watched and waited, holding its collective breath. News outlets covered the story nonstop, speculating about who or what had sent the signal. Conspiracy theories flourished online, while governments scrambled to prepare for any outcome then. One evening, the answer came. A fleet of ships appeared near Jupiter, their presence detected by telescopes and satellites. They were unlike anything humanity had ever imagined, massive, sleek, and glowing faintly against the blackness of space. Communication attempts yielded immediate results. The aliens identified themselves as the Cryolosians, claiming their homeworld was under attack by an unstoppable enemy. They begged for help, offering advanced technology in return. President Hayes ordered Captain Daniel Reeves, a seasoned astronaut, to lead a diplomatic mission aboard the SS Vanguard. Laura and Ryan were chosen to join the crew, tasked with assessing the situation up close. As they prepared for departure, a mixture of hope and fear gripped everyone involved. Humanity stood on the brink of its first encounter with extraterrestrial life, and whatever happened next would shape the future forever, unbeknownst to them. However, the Cryolosians harbored secrets of their own. Their plea for aid was not entirely truthful, and their arrival marked the beginning of a chain of events that would test Earth's resilience in ways no one could have anticipated. The battle raged on, a chaotic dance of light and destruction in the cold vacuum of space. SS Vanguard was battered, but still holding together, its crew fighting with everything they had. Captain Daniel Reeves stood on the bridge, his face etched with determination as he barked orders to his team. Divert power to the rear shields. Can't let them disable us completely. Laura and Ryan worked furiously in the science lab, analyzing data from the Cryolosian weapons. Every blast that hit the ship provided new information, and they were desperate to find a pattern or weakness. Laura's hands trembled as she adjusted the settings on her tablet, her mind racing. Their energy beams operate on a frequency modulation, she said, her voice tight with urgency. We can disrupt that frequency. We might be able to weaken their attacks. Ryan nodded, already typing commands into the console. I'll try to recalibrate our shield harmonics. It's a long shot, but it could buy us some time. On Earth, the situation was dire. Cities burned under the relentless assault of the Cryolosian fleet. Massive beams of energy tore through the atmosphere, striking military bases, power grids, and civilian areas alike. People ran for shelter, their screams drowned out by the deafening roar of collapsing buildings. Governments scrambled to coordinate evacuations, but the sheer scale of the attack made organized resistance nearly impossible. In Washington, President William Hayes watched the devastation unfold on live feeds from around the globe. His jaw tightened as he listened to reports of casualties mounting by the minute. General Andrew Hughes stood beside him, his expression grim. Sir, the Deathworlder Armada is mobilizing, but it will take hours to assemble fully. Until then, we're on our own. Hayes clenched his fists, frustration boiling inside him. You have to hold out until reinforcements arrive. Tell every available unit to engage. No retreats, no surrender. Across the planet, small pockets of resistance began to form. In Chicago, Jake Thompson, a former Marine-turned-mechanic, found himself thrust into the fight. When the first Krylosian beam struck his neighborhood, he grabbed an old rifle and rallied survivors. "We can't just sit here and wait to die," he told them, his voice firm, despite the fear in his eyes. "If we hit them where it hurts supply lines, communications, we can slow them down." Jake's group moved quickly, targeting Krylosian drones and supply ships that hovered low over the city. Their makeshift weapons were no match for the aliens' advanced technology, but their knowledge of the terrain gave them an edge. Using abandoned buildings and underground tunnels, they struck swiftly and disappeared before the Krylosians could retaliate. Meanwhile, Samantha Klein worked tirelessly aboard a covert orbital station, monitoring the Krylosian fleet for vulnerabilities. Her sharp instincts had already uncovered critical details about their command structure. "Their ships are networked," she explained during a secure transmission to General Hughes. "If we can disable their central command vessel, we might be able to cripple their entire operation." Hughes nodded, impressed by her insight. "Do you think you can pull it off?" "I'll need a team," Samantha replied. "And I'll need to get close enough to plant a virus directly into their system." "Consider it done," Hughes said. He immediately assembled a squad of elite operatives and dispatched them to retrieve Samantha. Within hours, she was en route to the front lines, ready to carry out her dangerous mission. Back aboard the Vanguard, Laura and Ryan finally succeeded in recalibrating the ship's shields. The next volley of Krylosian fire splashed harmlessly against the reinforced barrier, giving the crew a brief reprieve. Captain Reeves seized the opportunity to launch counterattacks, ordering the ship's weapons officers to target key points on the enemy vessels. "We've got one shot at this," Reeves said, his voice steady. "Focus all firepower on their lead cruiser. If we can take it out, the rest of the fleet might fall back." The Vanguard unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy beams, each strike lighting up the darkness of space. The Krylosian cruiser shuddered under the assault, its shields flickering and failing. For a moment, it seemed like victory was within reach, but then reinforcements arrived. A second wave of Krylosian ships emerged from hyperspace, their arrival announced by a blinding flash of light. The human crew stared in disbelief as dozens of new vessels joined the fray, their firepower overwhelming. The Vanguard was forced to retreat, limping away from the battlefield with heavy damage. As the ship withdrew, Laura and Ryan exchanged worried glances. "This isn't going to end well," Ryan said quietly. "Even with the Deathworlder Armada, we're outnumbered and outgunned." Laura shook her head, refusing to give up hope. "There has to be something we're missing. Something they don't want us to know." Her words proved prophetic when Samantha Klein made her move. Disguised in a stolen Krylosian uniform, she infiltrated one of the smaller alien ships and accessed its mainframe. What she discovered shocked her. The Krylosians weren't invaders. They were refugees fleeing a far greater threat. The Zitherans, the biomechanical horrors they had warned Earth about, were real. And they were coming. Samantha transmitted her findings to General Hughes, who relayed the information to President Hayes. The revelation left everyone speechless. The Krylosians had lied about their intentions, using Earth as bait to distract the Zitherans long enough for them to escape. Now, humanity faced a choice: ally with the Krylosians or stand alone against an even deadlier foe. Before any decision could be made, the Krylosians betrayed Earth once again. With their fleet repaired and regrouped, they prepared to flee, leaving the planet defenseless. Enraged, General Hughes ordered the Deathworlder Armada to intercept them. A fierce space battle erupted, with humanity's experimental warships clashing against the Krylosians' superior technology. Captain Reeves led the charge aboard the Vanguard, rallying what remained of his crew for one final stand. "This is it," he said, addressing the team over the intercom. "We fight for Earth 4, every man, woman, and child counting on us. Show them what we're made of." The Vanguard surged forward, its engines roaring as it closed in on the Krylosian command ship. Laura and Ryan worked together to upload a virus into the alien network, exploiting the same frequency modulation they had discovered earlier. The plan was risky, but it was their only chance, as the battle raged on. Jake and his team continued their guerrilla warfare on the ground. They managed to capture a damaged Krylosian drone, dragging it into an abandoned warehouse. Inside, they found vital components that could help humanity understand the aliens' technology. Jake radioed the information to Samantha, who used it to refine her virus. The tide began to turn, but the cost was staggering. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, debris scattering across the void. Lives were lost on both sides, the weight of the conflict pressing down on everyone involved. Yet amidst the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. Laura's virus spread through the Krylosian network, causing their shields to falter and their weapons to malfunction. With their defenses weakened, the Krylosians attempted to flee once more, but it was too late. The Zitherans had arrived. Massive biomechanical constructs descended upon the battlefield, their grotesque forms pulsing with unnatural energy. The Krylosians panicked, their ships scattering in disarray. Humanity watched in horror as the true enemy revealed itself, its presence dwarfing anything they had faced before. Captain Reeves stared at the monitors, his heart pounding. "This changes everything," he muttered. "We're not fighting the Krylosians anymore. We're fighting extinction." Laura gripped the edge of her console, her mind racing. "If we survive this," she said softly, "we'll never look at the stars the same way again." The stage was set for humanity's greatest challenge yet. Outnumbered, outgunned, and facing annihilation, Earth's defenders prepared to fight not just for survival, but for the future of their species. The arrival of the Zitherans changed everything. Their biomechanical ships loomed over the battlefield like dark, jagged mountains, their surfaces crawling with strange, pulsating tendrils that seemed alive. The Krylosians, who moments ago had been humanity's enemy, now scattered in terror, their vessels fleeing in all directions. The Zitherans ignored them completely, focusing instead on Earth and the human forces still fighting to defend it. On board the SS Vanguard, Captain Daniel Reeves watched the scene unfold with a mix of awe and dread. "What are those things?" he muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible over the alarms blaring across the ship. Laura and Ryan stood beside him, their faces pale as they studied the monitors displaying live footage of the Zitheran fleet. Laura shook her head, struggling to process what she was seeing. "They're monstrous," she whispered. "But they're also machines. It's like they fused biology and technology into something entirely new." Ryan pointed to one of the larger ships. Its surface bristled with spines that glowed faintly, and massive appendages extended outward, each tipped with weapons capable of obliterating entire cities. "Look at that," he said, his voice trembling. "It's not just a ship. It's a weapon. Every part of it is designed to destroy." Captain Reeves clenched his fists, determination hardening his expression. "We can't let them reach Earth. Whatever happens, we hold the line here." He turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to General Huzelum. We need reinforcements. Now." Meanwhile on Earth, chaos reigned. The Zitherans wasted no time launching an assault. Gigantic constructs descended from orbit, crushing buildings and leveling entire neighborhoods with ease. People screamed and ran for cover as beams of energy rained down from the sky, incinerating everything in their path. Military units tried to fight back. Their weapons were useless against the biomechanical horrors. In Chicago, Jake Thompson and his team found themselves caught in the middle of the devastation. They had been preparing to sabotage another Krylosian supply line when the first Zitheran construct appeared, towering over the city like a living nightmare. Jake stared up at it, his heart pounding. "This isn't just an invasion," he said, his voice shaking. "This is extermination." His group took cover in the ruins of an old factory, watching as the construct unleashed swarms of smaller drones that scoured the streets, hunting survivors. Knew they couldn't fight something like this head-on, but maybe they didn't. We need to hit them indirectly," he told his team. "Find their weak points and exploit them." Back in space, Samantha Klein worked frantically aboard her covert orbital station. Analyzing data transmitted from the battlefield, she had already identified key vulnerabilities in the Zitheran design, their reliance on a central hive mind structure. If they could disrupt that connection, even temporarily, it might give humanity a fighting chance. Samantha relayed her findings to General Andrew Hughes, who immediately began coordinating a counterattack. "We need to target their command nodes," he explained during a secure transmission to President William Hayes. "If we can sever their control, we might be able to slow them down." Hayes nodded grimly. "Do whatever it takes. Humanity's survival depends on it." The Deathworlder Armada fully mobilized, General Hughes ordered a daring plan into action. The experimental warships, equipped with cutting-edge weapons derived from reverse-engineered alien tech, formed a spearhead formation aimed directly at the largest Zithran vessel. Captain Reeves and the Vanguard led the charge. They're damaged. Ship patched together just enough to stay operational. As the human fleet approached, Zithrans responded with overwhelming force. Beams of energy lashed out, tearing through shields and hulls alike. Smaller biomechanical drones swarmed around the ships, attaching themselves to the hulls and attempting to breach the interiors. Inside the Vanguard, the crew fought desperately. To fend off the invaders while maintaining control of the ship, Laura and Ryan worked tirelessly in the science lab, monitoring the virus they had uploaded into the Krylosian network. Though the Krylosians had fled, remnants of their systems remained embedded in the Zithran fleet, creating unforeseen opportunities. Their tech is still linked to ours, Laura realized, her eyes widening. If we tweak the virus further, we might be able to use it against the Zithrans too. Ryan nodded, already typing commands into the console. "Let's do it. We don't have anything to lose at this point." While Laura and Ryan focused on adapting the virus, Captain Reeves prepared for a suicide mission. He gathered his senior officers. In the briefing room, his expression grim. "Listen up," he said, his voice steady, despite the tension in the air. "Our shields won't hold much longer, and if we retreat, Earth is finished. Our only option is to take out their command node. I'll lead a strike team aboard their flagship." Protests erupted immediately. "Captain, you can't go alone," one officer exclaimed. "It's suicide." Reeves raised a hand, silencing them. "I'm not asking for volunteers. This is my decision. The rest of you will keep the fleet intact and ready for the next phase of the battle. That's an order." Before anyone could argue further, Reeves left the room, heading toward the hangar bay where a small squad of Marines awaited him. Among them was Ryan, who had insisted on joining the mission despite Laura's protests. "You're better off staying here," she had pleaded with him. "Your skills are needed in the lab." "I can't sit back and watch while everyone else risks their lives," Ryan replied firmly. "Besides, someone has to make sure the virus gets deployed properly." As the strike team boarded a modified shuttle and launched toward the Zithran flagship, the rest of the fleet engaged the enemy in a desperate bid to draw their attention away. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as ships collided and debris scattered across the void. Inside the Zithran vessel, the atmosphere was suffocating. The walls pulsed with organic material, and strange, insect-like creatures patrolled the corridors, their glowing eyes scanning for intruders. Reeves and his team moved cautiously, avoiding detection as they made their way deeper into the ship. Ryan carried a portable device loaded with the modified virus, its screen flickering as he adjusted the settings. "We're close," he whispered, checking the map on his wrist display. "The command node should be just ahead." Suddenly, a loud screech echoed through the corridor. One of the biomechanical drones dropped from the ceiling, its claws slashing wildly. Marines opened fire, their weapons barely slowing the creature down. Reeves stepped forward, firing a grenade launcher at point-blank range. The explosion tore the drone apart, but more were already converging on their position. "Hurry," Reeves shouted, urging Ryan forward. They reached the command node, a pulsating mass of flesh and metal, suspended in the center of a cavernous chamber. Ryan connected the device to a nearby terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he initiated the upload. "It's working," he said, relief washing over him. Just a few more seconds. But time was running out. The Zithrans were closing in, their numbers overwhelming. Reeves and the Marines formed a defensive perimeter, firing relentlessly to hold them back. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, and the air grew thick with smoke and screams. Finally, the upload completed. Ryan pulled the device free, shouting, "We're done. Let's move." The team retreated as fast as they could, pursued by waves of biomechanical horrors. Behind them, The command node began to destabilize, its glow intensifying, until it erupted in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave rippled through the ship, throwing everyone off their feet. Outside, the effects were immediate. The Zithran fleet faltered, their movements becoming sluggish and uncoordinated. The human fleet seized the opportunity, launching a coordinated assault that pushed the invaders back. Though the battle was far from over, humanity had won a crucial victory. For the first time since the Zithrans' arrival, there was hope. But the cost had been immense, and the war was far from won. As the survivors regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the fight, one thing was clear: Earth would never be the same again. The aftermath of the virus deployment left the battlefield in disarray. The Zithran fleet, once a terrifying juggernaut of biomechanical destruction, now moved erratically, their coordination shattered. On board the SS Vanguard, Captain Daniel Reeves and his crew watched as the enemy ships faltered, their glowing tendrils dimming and their weapons firing wildly. It was a moment of relief, but only fleeting. The Zithrans were still dangerous, and their sheer numbers ensured that humanity's fight was far from over. Laura Bennett sat in the science lab, her hands trembling as she reviewed the data streaming in from the battlefield. The virus had worked, but not perfectly. While it disrupted the central hive-mind connection, smaller clusters of Zithran ships began forming independent nodes, each one attempting to regain control.
Oh.
Ryan Carter stood beside her, his face pale but determined. "We've bought some time," he said quietly. "But they're adapting." Captain Reeves entered the lab, his uniform scorched and his expression grim. "How much time do we have?" he asked, his voice tight with urgency. Laura hesitated before answering. "Maybe an hour or two at most. After that, they'll stabilize and come after us again, stronger than before." Reeves nodded, already calculating their next move. "And we hit them hard while they're still vulnerable. General Hughes is sending reinforcements, but we can't wait for them. We need to take out as many of those ships as we can right now." On Earth, the situation remained dire. Cities lay in ruins, smoldering under the relentless assault of the Zithrans. Survivors huddled in underground bunkers or fled into the wilderness, desperate to escape the biomechanical horrors scouring the surface. Jake Thompson and his team continued their guerrilla warfare, targeting supply depots and communication hubs in Chicago. They had managed to capture a damaged Zithran drone, dragging it into an abandoned subway tunnel to study its inner workings. Jake knelt beside the drone, prying open its metallic shell with a crowbar. Inside, intricate circuits and pulsating, organic tissue intertwined, creating a grotesque fusion of machine and biology. "This thing is part animal, part computer," he muttered, shaking his head. "How are we supposed to fight something like this?" One of his teammates, Maria, leaned closer, examining the exposed components. "Maybe we don't need to destroy them completely," she suggested. "If we can disable their movement systems or shut down their power sources, we might be able to slow them down." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "Good idea. Let's see if we can sabotage more of these drones without getting ourselves killed." Back in orbit, Samantha Klein monitored the battle from her covert station. Analyzing every scrap of data transmitted by the human fleet, she noticed something peculiar. The Zithrans' erratic behavior wasn't random. Each cluster of ships seemed to revolve around a secondary command node, smaller but still functional. If they could locate and destroy these nodes, they might cripple the entire fleet. Samantha relayed her findings to General Andrew Hughes, who immediately ordered strike teams to target the new nodes. "We need precision strikes," he instructed during a secure transmission. "No wasted shots. Every missile counts." President William Hayes listened intently, his face lined with exhaustion. "Do we have enough firepower to finish this?" he asked. His voice heavy with doubt, Hughes hesitated before answering. "Barely, sir. But if we hold nothing back, we might stand a chance." As the Deathworlder Armada regrouped, Captain Reeves led the charge once more, rallying what remained of his battered fleet. The Vanguard limped forward, its engines sputtering but still operational. Laura and Ryan worked tirelessly to recalibrate. the ship's weapons, focusing all available power on targeting the secondary nodes. We're running on fumes, Ryan admitted, sweat dripping down his face. But we've got one last punch left in us. The human fleet surged toward the nearest cluster of Zithran ships, unleashing a barrage of missiles and energy beams. Explosions lit up the darkness of space, debris scattering in all directions. One by one, the secondary nodes were destroyed, causing the surrounding ships to collapse into chaos. Yet even as the humans celebrated small victories, the largest Zithran vessel loomed menacingly in the distance, their mothership, untouched and seemingly invincible. Inside the mothership, the true horror of the Zithrans became apparent. Massive chamber housed their queen, a towering biomechanical monstrosity whose body pulsed with unnatural energy. Tendrils extended from her torso, connecting her to the ship itself, as if she were both ruler and life force. Smaller creatures scurried around her, tending to her needs and maintaining the delicate balance of the hive mind. Ryan stared at the live feed captured by reconnaissance drones, his stomach churning. "That's their leader," he whispered. "Her out, and we take them all out." Laura nodded, her mind racing. "But how? That thing is surrounded by layers of defenses. We'd never get close enough." Captain Reeves listened to their conversation, his jaw tightening. "Then we'll make our own way. Prepare a shuttle. I'm leading the mission." "No," Ryan interjected firmly. "You've done enough. Let me go. I know the virus better than anyone else. If there's a way to upload it directly into the Queen's system, I'm the best person for the job." Reeves hesitated, torn between his duty as captain and the logic of Ryan's argument. Finally, he relented. "All right, but you're not going alone. I'm assigning a squad of Marines to accompany you." Within minutes, Ryan and the strike team boarded a modified fighter craft, its sleek design built for speed and stealth. As they launched toward the Zithran mothership, the rest of the fleet provided cover fire, drawing the attention of nearby enemy vessels. Explosions erupted around them, but the shuttle slipped through the chaos undetected. Inside the mothership, the air was thick with an eerie hum, the walls pulsating like living flesh. The strike team moved cautiously, avoiding patrols of biomechanical drones and navigating narrow corridors. Ryan carried the portable device containing the virus, his hands steady despite the weight of the mission. "Keep your eyes open," he whispered. To the Marines, "We're not alone here." They reached the chamber housing the Queen, a cavernous space filled with writhing tendrils and glowing orbs of energy. The Queen herself dominated the room, her massive form radiating power. Ryan connected the device to a nearby terminal, initiating the upload process. "It's working," he said, glancing at the screen. "Just give me 30 seconds." The Marines formed a defensive perimeter, firing at the approaching drones and creatures. Despite their efforts, the Zithrans overwhelmed them, forcing Ryan to "Work faster, 20 seconds, he shouted, his voice strained. Suddenly a massive tendril lashed out, swiping at the terminal. Ryan dove out of the way just in time, narrowly avoiding being crushed. The impact damaged the connection, interrupting the upload. Panicking, Ryan scrambled to reconnect the device, his fingers trembling as he typed commands. "On. Come. On," he muttered under his breath. 10 seconds, he yelled, his voice cracking. The Marines fought valiantly, their ammunition running low as the biomechanical horrors closed in. One by one, they fell, until only Ryan remained. With 5 seconds left, a drone lunged at him, its claws inches from his face. Hitting the creature and knocking it back, he turned his attention back to the screen, watching as the progress bar inched toward completion. 3, 2, 1. The upload finished and the terminal sparked violently. Ryan grabbed the device and sprinted toward the exit, the chamber beginning to collapse around him. The Queen let out a deafening screech, her body convulsing as the virus spread through her system. The entire ship shuddered, throwing Ryan off his feet. Outside, human fleet watched in awe as the mothership erupted in a blinding explosion, its destruction rippling outward and engulfing nearby Zithran vessels. The remaining ships faltered, their movements ceasing entirely as the hive mind collapsed. For a moment, silence reigned. Then cheers erupted across the fleet, the survivors celebrating their hard-fought victory. On Earth, the surviving cities began to rebuild, the threat of the Zithrans finally neutralized. But the cost had been immense. Millions had died, and the scars of war would linger for generations. As the dust settled, humanity looked to the stars with newfound resolve. They had faced extinction and survived, yet deep down, everyone knew this was only the beginning. The silence that followed the destruction of the Zithran mothership was both eerie and profound. The battered remnants of Earth's fleet floated amidst a sea of debris-shattered ships, drifting fragments of metal and glowing embers. From the final explosions, the Deathworlder Armada had won, but the victory felt hollow. Too many lives had been lost, too much destroyed. Captain Daniel Reeves stood on the bridge of the SS Vanguard, his hands gripping the railing as he stared out at the wreckage. His face was grim, his eyes heavy with exhaustion and grief. Laura Bennett sat in the science lab, her head resting on her arms atop the console. She hadn't slept in days, and the weight of everything they'd endured pressed down on her chest. Like a stone, Ryan Carter walked in, his uniform torn and his face streaked with soot. He looked just as tired as she did. There was something else in his expression, a mix of relief and determination. "We did it," Ryan said softly, pulling up a chair beside her. "It's over." Laura raised her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is it, though? What happens next?" "The Krylosians lied to us. They used us as bait, and now we've seen what's out there. We can't go back to how things were before." Ryan nodded slowly. "You're right. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe this is our chance to grow stronger, smarter, to prepare for whatever comes next." On Earth, the survivors began the long, painful process of rebuilding. Cities lay in ruins, their streets littered with rubble and ash. Refugees wandered through the devastation, searching for loved ones or any semblance of safety. Jake Thompson and his team emerged from the underground tunnels where they had been hiding, blinking against the harsh light of day. The air smelled of smoke and burnt metal, but beneath it all, there was a faint trace of hope. Jake surveyed the damage around him, his heart heavy but resolute. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us," he muttered, turning to Maria and the others. "But we'll get through this, together." Maria nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "What about the Krylosians? Do you think they'll come back?" Jake shook his head. "I don't know. But if they do, we'll be ready." In Washington, President William Hayes addressed the nation from a makeshift broadcast studio. His face was drawn, his voice steady but tinged with sorrow. Today, humanity faced its greatest challenge, emerged victorious. But let us never forget the cost of that victory. Millions have perished and countless more have suffered unimaginable loss. We owe it to them to rebuild not just our homes and cities, but our spirit. From this moment forward, we stand united not just as nations, but as one people, looking to the stars with courage and resolve. General Andrew Hughes listened to the speech from a command center, his arms crossed over his chest. Klein stood nearby, her sharp gaze fixed on a monitor displaying data from the battle. Despite the victory, neither of them felt fully at ease. "We stopped the Zithrans," Hughes said finally, breaking the silence. "But they weren't alone out there. There are other species we haven't even encountered yet. Protect ourselves against enemies we don't understand." Samantha turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "By learning from this, by studying their technology, understanding their weaknesses, and preparing for every possible scenario. This war taught us that we're capable of incredible things when we work together. If we keep that unity alive, we'll have a fighting chance." As the days passed, efforts to recover and rebuild gained momentum. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged infrastructure, while scientists pored over the salvaged remains of Zithran and Krylosian technology. Laura and Ryan returned to Earth, their expertise invaluable in deciphering the alien systems. They discovered that the biomechanical fusion used by the Zithrans could revolutionize human medicine and engineering, but only if they approached it carefully. "You realize what this means, don't you?" Ryan asked one evening as they examined a piece of Zithran circuitry This isn't just about rebuilding, it's about evolving. It's about becoming something more. Laura smiled faintly, her mind racing with possibilities. And maybe that's exactly what we need to survive out here, to adapt, to innovate, to become a species that doesn't just react to threats, but anticipates them. Meanwhile, diplomatic discussions began between Earth's leaders and the surviving Krylosians. Though distrust lingered on both sides, necessity forced cooperation. The Krylosians offered their knowledge and resources to aid in Earth's recovery. Recognizing that their survival depended on humanity's forgiveness, General Hughes remained skeptical, but President Hayes saw an opportunity for mutual benefit. They betrayed us, Hughes argued during a private meeting.
Oh, why should we trust them now?
Because we don't have a choice, Hayes replied firmly. If another threat comes, we'll need allies. And if working with the Krylosians helps us protect our planet, then that's what we'll do. The Krylosians, humbled by their defeat, pledged to share their advancements in exchange for refuge within Earth's solar system. Their leader, Commander Valen, addressed humanity via holographic transmission, his tone sincere. We came too, your world seeking salvation. Instead, we brought destruction. For that, we offer our deepest apologies. Let us work together to ensure no such tragedy occurs again. Not everyone accepted the olive branch willingly. Public opinion was divided, with some calling for retribution and others advocating for reconciliation. But as time went on, practicality outweighed resentment. Humanity needed every advantage it could get, and the Krylosians' technology provided a significant edge. Jake and his team continued their efforts on the ground, helping to clear debris and restore basic services in Chicago, slowly but surely. Life began to return to the city. People started coming out of hiding, sharing stories of survival and resilience. A sense of community emerged, born from shared hardship and determination. One evening, Jake climbed to the rooftop of a partially collapsed building, gazing up at the night sky. The stars twinkled brightly, their beauty undiminished by the chaos. Below, Maria joined him, handing him a cup of water. "What are you thinking about?" she asked quietly. Jake sighed, his voice soft, about how small we are, how fragile, but also how strong. Look at what we've overcome. Look at what we're still capable of. Maria nodded, following his gaze. Do you think we'll ever really be safe out here, among the stars? I don't know, Jake admitted, but I do know one thing: we'll never stop trying. That's who we are, survivors. Across the globe, similar moments of reflection played out. Humanity had faced extinction and prevailed not through sheer strength, but through ingenuity, unity, and sheer willpower. The scars of war would fade with time, but the lessons learned would endure. As the months turned into years, Earth transformed. New technologies reshaped society, making it more advanced and interconnected than ever before. Space exploration accelerated, driven by the realization that humanity's future depended on reaching beyond its home planet. On the Moon and Mars, serving as stepping stones toward the stars, yet even as humanity reached new heights, it remained vigilant. Defense systems were upgraded, and early warning networks were established to detect potential threats. The Deathworlder Armada expanded, its ships standing ready to protect Earth from whatever dangers lurked in the vastness of space. For Laura and Ryan, the journey was far from over. Their work analyzing alien technology opened doors to discoveries they had never imagined possible. They became pioneers in a new era of scientific exploration, their names etched into history alongside those who had fought to save their world. Captain Reeves retired from active duty, choosing instead to mentor the next generation of astronauts and commanders. His leadership during the war had earned him legendary status, but he preferred to stay behind the scenes, ensuring that humanity would always be prepared for the unknown. And so, under a sky filled with endless possibilities, humanity took its first steps into a larger universe. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and risks. But for the first time, Earth looked outward, not with fear, but with hope. The stars were no longer distant lights. They were destinations, beckoning humanity to explore, to learn, and to thrive. In the end, the war with the Zitherans had changed everything. It had tested humanity's limits and revealed its strengths. And though the scars of battle would never fully heal, they served as a reminder of what had been sacrificed and what had been gained. For better or worse, humanity was no longer alone in the cosmos. It was part of something greater, bound by the shared struggle to survive and succeed among the stars.